Is it hypocritical to be in favor of animal rights? Is it hypocritical to say that I would like to help the animals? I volunteer at the shelter and I help the dogs and the cats and the rescued pups and kittens and other wildlife in other cases. Is that hypocritical? Is that phony? Or can that be an authentic sentiment? Here, a word that seems appropriate to explore in this connection is that of love, because that's probably how we would frame it, right? I love dogs, I love cats, I love wildlife, I love animals, and I love to take care of them. Let's explore a little bit the nature of love and see as to whether or not, or see as to how um, love can express itself in this connection. Love can be defined as a feeling, of course, just the way that I feel. I can also define love as a positive kind of titillation that I have, and say, for example, I love pizza, I love ice cream, this and that. But of course, if I really loved pizza in a non-selfish way, why would I eat it, right? I should keep it in my room and read to it or something. So, meaning I love the way that pizza makes me feel, and that's it. So when I use love in that sense concerning other people, it's the same thing. Right? I love you, meaning I love the way that you make me feel. But if now you make me feel bad, goodbye. Right? Now I might hate you. It's love everlasting, at least until you make me feel bad or hurt my pride enough, and then it's goodbye. Often enough, unfortunately. But there's a different connotation of that term, and it could be defined as aspiring for your good, for your highest welfare. And that can be thought of as a question of will as opposed to of feeling. So, for example, I can say that I love my child in the first sense, meaning my child makes me proud. I just feel this amazing feeling when, especially when my kid is a baby. Wow, it's just an incredible feeling. That's one connotation of the term love, which is great. But another one is I will the good of my child. So even if today my child is causing me headaches, is getting in trouble, is making me look bad in front of my friends and in front of the world, I'm still willing my child's good. I still want my child to be everything he or she can be. I'm still going to feed my child, that kind of thing. You get the idea? So, love in the first sense is volatile, tends to be, right? It's very specific usually. Certain people make me feel a certain type of way. Certain foods make me feel a certain type of way. When we say I love pizza, I love ice cream. But love in the second sense can certainly be universal. I can, as a matter of principle, will the good of other people in the context that I'm in, which sometimes means something as simple as smiling when I'm in a bad mood to cheer somebody up, or feeding my kids when I don't want to, when I would rather not, right? Or being there for friends and family members when I have my own issues. So in the second sense, it's a matter of will, it's a matter of principle, it's a matter of clear vision. In the first sense, it's a matter of what I feel like today, in the moment. So let's take the second sense of love and think about how it can apply to animals. As was mentioned, the second sense of love concerns willing the welfare of somebody. Now, who can the welfare, or of whom, should we say, can the welfare, who can be a candidate for their welfare being willed? There we go. Can it be an object? No, right? Because an object is just a thing to me. If I say that I care for my car for its own sake, I'm cuckoo, right? Because there is no own sake for the car. The car exists to me. Philosophical question, how does it exist when there's nobody there? But certainly to suppose that the car can possibly think, oh, here I am, the car, and I want something is nuts. That's not so. The car exists for me, and in whatever other way objects exist when there's nobody around to see them. But they don't have their own point of view. They don't have their own agenda. So we can't will the welfare of objects. Can we will the welfare of insects? Well, insects, when we observe them, an inference of sentience does seem appropriate. we are inferring, but even something as simple as a fly flying away, things don't usually do that. We can set them up with AI and robots and this and that, but by themselves, things tend not to fly away, right, or move out of the way. So we infer, oh, well, there's some sentience there, right? There's some experience of my hand or of some kind of moving object which is connected to the fly's desires, and the fly flies away. Just a hypothesis, but all the same, seems to be a pretty warranted one. Now, how would we will the good of insects? Well, insects have desires, again, by all appearances, and we could facilitate those desires. For example, ants are moving a crumb to their nest. We could take that crumb and put it in the nest. An insect is in water, and we could take it out because we assume that the insect would rather not drown, or even if it can't formulate that it's just painful and unpleasant to be in this situation. So we take that insect out. So we can do those kinds of things for insects. And yet the question is anybody really helped? Right? Because all of those experiences, should they happen at all, occur in the moment, and then they pass, and that's it. And they can't be added up, and there's no point of view from which all of them, are happening together. Right? There have been philosophical or philosophies which would aim to frame the good as the sum total of happiness or of pleasure, and the bad as pain, for example. But we see that that's ridiculous, right? The pain that we infer in connection with one drowning insect can't be added to the pain of another drowning insect. Nor can the pleasure of one insect that we maybe give a little sugar to be added to the pleasure of another insect. It happens, it passes, and that's it, without a mark, as far as it seems. The fact that a mosquito enjoyed some blood 100 years ago, how does that exist? And so if today we give a mosquito some blood, such as our own, and we say, I want to help, I want to be a good person, I want to will the welfare of the mosquito, we see we can will there being a positive sensation, should there be those sensations, but we cannot will the welfare of the mosquito. Because to will the welfare of the mosquito would demand that there is a self that exceeds the titillation, meaning the stimulation, the pleasure of the moment. We get the idea? There's a different kind of insect that likes sugar. So I give it a little bit of sugar, and I infer that there's a pleasurable sensation in that moment. But then it's gone, and that's it. Right? What would be the condition for me to have willed the welfare of the insect as insect? It would be that there's a continuous self there that will be there the next moment. Right, so now let's think about animals. Are animals candidates for willing their weal, meaning their welfare? Well, we see that, for one thing, animals certainly seem able to sacrifice smaller goods for higher goods. For example, we can see female predatory cats sacrificing a great deal to hunt for their cubs, for their young, like being out in the heat, going on long hunts, all kinds of things. Therefore, we can suppose that animals are capable of something like a practical hedonism of sacrificing slighter goods for greater goods. As the cheetah say, I'm going to sacrifice my comfort, my bodily homeostasis, in order to attain to the satisfaction of feeding my cubs, because I want them to live. We could infer, again, putting words in its mouth and thoughts in its mind, and so say. So is practical hedonism a sufficient condition for moving towards welfare? Well, we can think about ourselves. If I sacrifice some shorter pleasure for some kind of greater pleasure later on, that is certainly the first rung of any kind of humanity worth its name. Right? If I simply and solely do what is pleasurable now and avoid everything that is painful, then I'm just going to deteriorate and degrade very fast, and it's going to get ugly very soon. Right? Because in the moment, I want this. Who cares about the consequences? I don't want this. Who cares about the consequences? My bodily health will degrade. My mental health will degrade. It's not going to be a good deal. So practical hedonism is the first step of being able to move in a positive direction. But there too, the question is begged. Who is the beneficiary and when? Let's say that I sacrifice 5 years of immediate physiological pleasure, such as can come from drug use and things like that, in order to pursue some kind of bigger goal of, say financial stability. And then I enjoy 10 years of other kinds of pleasure that came from that financial stability. Still, am I helped? Those 10 years will also pass. Okay, now what? So what? So it's the same idea. It's still temporal. It's still within the class of that which comes and goes. So concerning animals, then, it would seem that we can aid animals in attaining to somewhat larger satisfaction than they could otherwise attain to. For example, it could be imagined that a dog can attain to greater satisfaction in loving its owner and showing affection to its owner, right? In behaving well and then getting a belly rub. That's more satisfying than some kind of satisfying an immediate appetite or impulse, such as going to the restroom indoors, something like this, eating when it's not allowed, right? So that's possible for an animal, practical hedonism. But here too, we see that practical hedonism doesn't justify itself. Okay, so you sacrificed, this immediate pleasure for a greater pleasure, a greater satisfaction. So what? So we still need something that is yet absent, and that would be that possibility of a permanent self that exceeds both the moment of a stimulation, like I need to scratch myself or drink something, and also even the longer stretches of time as practical hedonism involves. Now, what is that self? Is it something that, I can pick up in a microscope? It's a question of development. Personhood and personality can develop. Integration of mind can develop. It's just a fact that we don't need any speculation or theory. In connection with sufficient capacities, personhood that is lifted above the temporal can develop, such as comes at the sacrifice of both our immediate impulses and also our lower selves. The angry self, the selfish self, the self-centered self, the hateful self, the slothful self, all of those selves need to die or go. But a greater self, a better self, in the case of a human being, will be there. And there's reason to think that it can again be lifted above the temporal. So therefore, it seems that the welfare of someone is consigned to life, such as in connection with which lasting personhood and personality can arise. There doesn't seem to be any reason to suppose that such personhood and personality can arise in connection with any types of life but that which is called human life, Homo sapien life. Therefore, to review, our goal is to love, to will the welfare of what is in question, or who is in question. We can't do that with objects. With insects, we can facilitate some pleasurable moments at best. Right? Give our arm to the mosquito, let it sip on our blood. But the question is, so what? Okay, nice. There's some pleasurable moments, and they pass. Again, they can't be added up. You can't take some kind of point of view where, all the millions of mosquitoes that are enjoying themselves, there we go, all comes together. So it's senseless. Right? It's a waste of our time. Let me run around saving insects from water and giving them sugar. Okay, right? Animals are capable of what in human beings could be called practical hedonism, sacrifice of something shorter term in order for some deeper satisfaction. The dog can sacrifice the desire to pee indoors immediately for the greater satisfaction of pleasing its owner, we infer. But that too passes. What is needed is the possibility of personality and personhood that does not pass. That seems to be able to arise only in connection with human beings. Therefore, to will the good of someone only applies, it does seem, per the presented reasoning, to human beings. In connection with the initial question, is it hypocritical to care about animal welfare and animal rights along the lines of the presented reasoning? It is not hypocritical to have sympathy for sentient states as brought to our attention by animal bodies. There's no doubt, as far as we can possibly tell, that pain and pleasure can be felt in connection with animal bodies. If I see suffering, then so far as I am kind of an intact individual, my impulse shall be to alleviate that suffering. If I have the opportunity to provide a positive experience for someone, if I'm an intact individual, my impulse will be to provide that positive experience, again, barring any other considerations. And that would be so for animals. Right? Why not? I see an animal suffering. Can I help it? I can give a belly rub to a dog or scratch a dog's ear. Why not? But what I cannot do is I cannot facilitate the rise of permanent atemporal, meaning above time, individuality, personhood, and personality by the way of animals, no matter what I do. I can take care of my cat to the utmost of my ability, but my cat will always be a cat. But if I take care of, say, a human baby to the best of my ability and provide the human baby with an education and morality and ethics and all of that, then the human baby can become a person, which is beyond the immediate sensation, scratching, and also beyond practical hedonism. So that would seem to be the highest good. That would seem to be the highest form of willing the welfare of sentient beings. So what would be hypocritical then would be to imply that anything can replace that, as it can occur in humans. If I say, you know what, I don't need to worry about my own development or that of those around me, I can simply focus on animals, and some good will be done in the world that is permanent. That seems to be false. No permanent good can be done by the way of animals. I've trained my dog, and it attains the greater satisfaction in not going pee-pee indoors than it would have otherwise. Great, but that will still pass. And I've taken care of my horse, and my horse has some affection for me, and we have a connection. Great, it'll still pass. So permanent good cannot be done no matter what I do to animals. No matter how much I care for them, no matter how I talk to them, it cannot be done. Animals cannot attain, as far as it certainly seems, to individuality, which significantly escapes the kind of gravitational pull, to use that analogy, of their bodies. They cannot become persons, in other words. Only Homo sapiens can become persons. The highest form of love can only apply to Homo sapiens, to human beings. The highest form of willing the good can only apply to human beings. Affection can apply to anything, objects, food, and certainly animals, insects, whatever the case might be, but genuine love. So to, again, in short and in summary, to claim that that kind of love, that kind of will for the welfare of beings can apply in the case of animals is hypocritical, because it's false. It's not true by any reasonable account. However, to naturally react when we see creatures in pain, and to naturally want to give creatures pleasure, scratch the dog's ears, that's normal and natural, and there's no problem with that at all. So we can think about it. Thank you for listening.